Let's start with a couple of questions I'm going to roll together concerning the nuclear situation in North Korea and Iran. Is the situation dangerous? How does it contrast North Korea versus the Iranian nuclear situation? And why does the U.S. have no clout when it comes to influencing settlement policy?
By settlement policy, you're still talking about the nuclear thing, not settlements in the West Bank.
Yeah.
Okay, but just want to be sure. Well, I think there's a very close parallelism between Iran and North Korea. I've been going to North Korea quite regularly since 1994, when we were on the verge of a war between North and South Korea, and I went over and negotiated with Kim Il-sung, and then President Clinton followed up and had an agreement in all issues, including no nuclear program in North Korea that was consummated in Geneva a little bit later on. Unfortunately, when George W. Bush became president, he threw that agreement in the wastebasket. And at that time, North Korea, who is very paranoid and very isolated, as you know, and very dominated by dictatorship, decided that they would go all out to defend themselves by creating nuclear capability. The first thing that they did was to purify spent nuclear rods from inside two very small power plants that I knew about then. The world knew about it. And they agreed not to do that anymore. But that's the way you make plutonium, and that's what they have now. It's probably the capability of 4 or 5 or 6 plutonium bombs. They just exploded another one, as you know, this past month. We don't know if it was purified uranium, which takes a lot longer, or just the plutonium made out of spent fuel. So I think that the North Koreans are going to have a good enough judgment not to be suicidal, because they know that if they ever use a nuclear weapon against South Korea or anywhere else, that the United States will wipe them off the map, because we have 5,000 very advanced nuclear weapons. I think the same thing exists in Iran. My hope is that we can prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon, and I'm not sure at this point, and no one else is either, that Iran leaders have decided to go with a nuclear capability, that is a nuclear bomb capability. They have now purified their uranium in centrifuges. They have thousands of them, up to about 20% of pure U-235, which is the explosive component of uranium. Most of it is 238, which is not explosive. And so this is something that's a challenge for us. And so my hope is that we can negotiate with them. There was a deal worked out between Brazil and Turkey and Iran earlier that said that they could go up to 20%. Iran agreed to say okay, and they would let the international inspectors come in. So far, the United States has never offered Iran to lift all the economic sanctions if they would agree on limiting their nuclear capability to 20% and letting the IAEA, the inspection, come in and see about them. But even if Iran should develop, this is the worst case, and I hope it doesn't happen, if they should develop 2 or 3 nuclear weapons, then they know that if they should challenge Israel, for instance, with one of their nuclear weapons, Israel has, 200 nuclear weapons of a very advanced nature. We have 5,000, and I'm not sure that the Iranians are suicidal enough to want to have their own country wiped off the map by challenging Israel. So my own preference is that we negotiate with Iran and negotiate with North Korea as well, because we have not been willing to even talk to North Korea for a number of years. There's been not a single day of talks with North Korea since President Obama has been in office. I've been there twice since then. But what they want is to have a peace treaty with the United States. So far, we just have a ceasefire between the United States and North Korea, left over from the end of the nuclear war 60 years ago. So there's a lot of parallelism between them. I don't believe either one of those countries is going to be suicidal enough to use nuclear weapons. I hope we can prevent their nuclear weapons by good faith talks with both countries.